That's right. The Buick is back. So importantly, in like a little over a month, we'd rather have it done in just a month. Good Guys is going to be here, and the Buick Nationals in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which we were very close to. I've always wanted to go as a kid and just never made it out. So we got to get this thing acting more like a Buick GS and less like a very sad, poor muscle car. So business this time that we're going to get done. Radiator's got a leak. She's gone. Cheap Chinese fans, they're gone. Thermostat, I don't think has been changed. And if it has been changed, it's been changed with like 180, or sorry, not 100, like a 195, like a stock thermostat. So we're going to put a 185 in there. And I think that's it just to get to the car show. Basically, just get the cooling stuff done. Oh, and relays. I've got 2 relays coming for the dual fans because these are lightweight fans. The other fan actually requires some voltage. So I've got that ordered. But yeah, cooling stuff so we can get to the car show. That'll be Friday. And then Saturday, we'll bring it back in. And I think we're either going to start on the oil pump or suspension. Kind of up in the air. I can get it places and it drives fine with the oil pump the way it is. It just needs to be updated. But the suspension's getting kind of, it looks kind of dangerous. So may need to get that fixed first. But let's get started on this. All right, so old radiator out, new radiator getting ready to be fabbed up. Basically got to figure out how to fit the fans on this one, which looks like it's gonna be a little tricky because there's nothing really here. That'll be fun. Anyways, one thing I wanted to show you, this is your core size right here. And this even has some of the metal from the fan to bump it up. Just a little over an inch. Wow. 2.5. Over 2.5. So 2.6 to 1.1. This is a massive upgrade. There's our fans down there. I'm gonna get this off first and just see if we can reuse this shield here. I'd like it to have more holes for breathing, like actual flaps that would open up, but for the time being, that might be good enough. So we're gonna see how it's gonna fit. And this radiator does have a really nice lip to go into, and I can't really tell if there's anything. I don't think there's anything here. So might be able to go directly on that. I don't want to zip tie them to the front of the radiator or the rear of the radiator, but that might have to happen. I am not sure. Anyways, let's get started. All right, thermostat is out. They had replaced it before. It is 195. The new one is gonna be a 180. To me, 180 is like the happy medium. The heater still works. Still easy to keep it much cooler than like 210 degrees in traffic if you've got a good cooling system. So to me, this is the best one all around. You'll notice I've got 2 holes drilled in it. I've always drilled holes in my thermostat. You can even get some now that have like little brass plug that like floats around in it. The Grand Prix has one when we just did it. On the older ones, I have a tendency to drill 2 holes because I always want some kind of flow. And if there's any pressure buildup, it's more likely to burp, which that's true of modern cars too. But just on the old ones, I like just having a little bit more flow and making sure the system's pressure is kind of equalized. And this has always worked out really good for me because I've never had really any issues bleeding cars or, you know, them not getting rid of the air bubbles in them. So that's done. We got a few fittings that need to be sealed in the radiator. It's outside being washed. Still trying to think about how I want to do these fans. I think that's going to be where I'm going to overly complicate this, where it doesn't need to be, but we'll see. Sliced and diced, plenty of room now. The 2 rubber, what would you call them? Insulators are up at the top. So everything works pretty well. The only problem is these are not super tight, but close enough. So we need to hold some pressure on this. Now you can't go through the front down because of the fans. So what I'm thinking, see, there's our insulators. We need to just draw this down. And then the radiator is perfectly sandwiched, not gonna go anywhere, life is great. I'm thinking the plan is from that bracket right there, drill a hole and come up in the middle of this with some all thread, because that's what I got in the shop. And basically that'll work as like a pull down bar. Just thinking it through, if there's any other way of doing this that would be any easier or nicer. And I don't think so, as far as with what I've got to work with tonight. So I think that's what we're gonna do. Drill a hole in the middle of that, keep it far enough from the radiator it's not gonna rub through, and then go down to the bottom there, and basically you'll just have to take off. I'll use some lock washers on the side of this that's down there, just that way you can lock it down and there's no issue. But I think that'll work perfectly. That radiator is a freaking monster. What's also not helping too is the radiator support at the bottom is bent up. So what really needs to happen with this at some point when we start really getting into this car nice, get rid of that, and just build something looks a lot nicer and has a lot more shroud around the whole radiator as far as pointing to the car, front of the car. But for right now, this is gonna be 10 times better, so we're just gonna get her done. But I'm gonna get to work on that. All right, it's all made up. Made this little bracket. Has like a little footstep so that it presses down the front. I've got some parts ordered for this, so we'll be redoing this at some point, but she is sturdy. She's not going anywhere. You shake it, the whole car shakes. There's enough give so that it's not solid mounted, which is not what you want. You want a little squishy. Some moves. Locating pin. That's the all thread that runs from right there. Yeah, it's bowed a little bit, but I think it being under pressure might not be a bad thing. But that's done. So what I've got left to do, mount the fan, do the wiring, hook everything up, and put coolant in. All right, so this is the plan. This part of the radiator, obviously, none of the fins are up here. So 1/4 inch bolt all the way through. You gotta line it up perfectly for it to drop through. And there we go. So basically, this gives you something to clamp. And then the game plan, I don't know what this stuff is called. I've used it many times in my life, but I can't remember it. This will be bolted to the radiator. And then obviously you've got perfect holes. So the radiator fan will be up at the top here and mounted in probably, I'd say about 4 spots that should get it up through here. So basically I'm going to put in a bolt like this, capture between 2 locking nuts, and it'll stick up like a stud, and that will have the top. Now the good thing is I think obviously the radiator's a little bit below that in some spots. I'm gonna try to mount it so that this holds, which I can shim this with washers if I need to, will hold the fan just a little bit off the radiator so there's no physical contact with it. And that will take care of the top and be a great mounting point. Now for the bottom, it is quite a bit shorter. So what'll happen is, same thing again with one of these, like this, trimmed down, mounted here, place to put bolt holes, and then I think I'm gonna take all thread like this, capture it here again, and then use it as a spacer, or I may use a bolt, I don't know, but basically that should hold it up off the radiator just a little bit, and that should solid mount it, where if it breaks, it's because the radiator cracked and it broke and let go. So here's just it mounted up, just kind of what we're going for. Obviously this isn't bolted down yet, it's still loose. But so what you have a long bolt, nut there, so nut head there, bolt here. So that's already locked in. Using this little bit of foam, basically to keep the radiator from rubbing, or sorry, from the fan from rubbing the radiator, keeps it tight. I wish these were lock washers. I don't have any lock washers or lock nuts, so maybe just low grade Loctite on these. I haven't decided yet, but it seems like this is gonna work great. It's very sturdy. I'm gonna run this piece all the way over with probably 4 more of these mounts throughout here, and that way it's sturdy, it's not building into the radiator, and that'll have the top part done and ready, and then we can start on the bottom. This has been very time consuming running back and forth to the parts store, and it is kicking my tail. So, we're gonna get this done. All right, bolted down. So, I've just got 2 studs. I drilled and tapped this piece of metal so they hold in, and then this is lock nutted here and here. So stable at the bottom. Very, very stable. I've got some high temp foam to keep it off the actual radiator. See how that works out. It's a little alarming how much that sticks over. May get stuck in the fan, who knows. Got some foam up at the top to keep it off. I'm going to cut these off here in just a minute after I get the rest of this stuff plugged up so we won't get anything in there. But yeah, it is extremely sturdy. There's nothing gonna happen there. If I ever have to take it off, probably just gonna be easier to take these off at the bottom and the top, but I can still back these out, pull this out, pull the nuts, and it'll basically come down and out. This fan's not got many miles on it. Hopefully this will do all the cooling we need done. I do realize that it doesn't cover all the sides. Now, the drag truck we have has a Shelby single fan on the front of it. It does not cover the sides, and it cools wonderful. I've seen a lot where on these shrouds, aftermarket, they have little vents that kick open when you get to speed to let airflow go. It's because more airflow at 80 than what these fans will do, like when you're on the interstate. So I think having a little bit open is not bad. Now, the front of the car does not do a good job of directing it into the radiator. The grill's there, but there's no like metal pieces on like the bottom and really the top, except for our little cowl top, whatever you want to call it, to put air in. So that might be something I work on if we do have an overheating issue, but I think this will work. So, cut the top bolts, hook up some jumpers to see which one is power and which one is ground, so we know how to wire these things up, and then it'll be time to put in the car. Since we're wiring stuff up to the battery, I'm gonna see if we can fix this hot mess. As you can see, side post with adapters, bungee corded in here. Obviously there's some rust, so maybe we'll put a license plate over it. But I've got a good top mount right here. So I don't have a lot of time because this thing go in the shop and I'll be out of town this weekend. So I'm gonna take this off and just see if the new one will fit in. If we can go run and grab something real quick to hold it down and get rid of this jankiness, because all this battery has to do is move over X amount and we're in bad shape of welding itself to the car. So see if we can kill 2 birds, 1 stone here. Get the fans wired up and get this battery replaced. Well, license plate works to kind of give it a little bit of something to set on, but I'm still just not happy with how it's going to be held. So I figured all this stuff's like 20 bucks from the auto parts store. It's plastic, but it is better than nothing. So I've just got to run a few holes, which I think these are stripped out. I think that's part of the reason. Oh yeah, she's good rusty right in here. The frame's good, part of the body's not. But it basically just put the plastic one in, run some bolts, just so we've got something for this thing to stand and be bolted down with and make me feel better. You can see old battery, new battery. But yeah, let's just see if we can scab something together. We now have a deadline on this. There's a car show tomorrow. It'd be perfect time to test out the cooling system. So I need the battery done, need everything wired up, and need to be test driving it tonight just to see if it'll go through the motions, and then drive it tomorrow. All right, so that's where our tray's gonna sit. There'll be 1 more bolt here, and I gotta bolt it down. But since we have some natural weight reduction, AKA rusty, basically what you're gonna have is 2 plates. These 2 bolted in, and then the tray will be bolted in 3 of those 4 bolts. So this is pretty solid, this kind of solid, and this is loose. This kind of brings it all together except for this part right here. As you see, these set on it. So roughly it'll strengthen it. It's much better than what we had. That's all I can say. This needs to be fixed, and you cut all this out, put in a new panel, blah, 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 or a big piece of sheet. We don't have time for that, but I want it to be safer. I want a little bit better job to be done. So I'm gonna run some big washers on the outside, on the back side of it, to kind of help it brace some more. May even run some more plate. I'm not sure. It's probably what really needs to happen is to basically copy these from the top and put them on the bottom. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. I've got just enough plate left to probably do one or two, or maybe even go across, which would probably even be a better idea. But we're about to have this finished, and then we can start on the wiring. All right, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning. So battery's mounted. Not perfect, but using all the parts we already had. Had to clock the negative because of being able to get the bolt, but also replaced it. This one was not long enough, coming loose here, and then been skidding through, so just ran the auto parts store and got one. The hold down works great. A little bit of wiggle, not much. As you can see, the radiator's in. The wires are not going to be this exposed. I thought I had some loom to put it in, but I don't. But hey, guess what? We'll just get it started and get it bleeding and make sure the fans work before we tighten up all the wire and have to cut it all back apart. We're a little bit low on oil. Put a zinc additive in. All right, guys, I'm freaking thrilled. I'm having to be a little bit quiet because it's, again, 2 o'clock in the neighborhood, so can't be too loud. Can't be in the shop for too long because the car's been running in there. Obviously, noxious gases, whatever, O2, don't want to die. Too young to die. But there she is. Let's walk in here real quick. So it got up to 190, fans turned on, and one thing it has never ever done is fans came on, temp drops straight down to like 170, 160 area, and then like within minutes, drop the temp down, fans back off again. So that means these things are gonna cool real nicely. Obviously it's not hot, so outside, so obviously summer it'll probably run a little warmer, but everything like clockwork. I'm not seeing any leaks, just need to get this mess of wiring, and dude, I am so stoked. We're making it to the car show tomorrow, and it ain't overheating. This is our setup. Obviously a little smoke, the coolant is a little warm. But yeah, guys, I think it's burped. Oil pressure is better. Obviously with some oil in it, it will get better. But with the zinc additive, I think it's helping a little bit with that. But I am so stoked. Everything seems to be working well. I need to check the transmission fluid, and I need to check the tire pressure. The oil's good, so top off the coolant. But yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna go get some of the plastic loom that I use way too much of, but works. And we'll be driving this bad boy to Franklin, Kentucky for their season opener on their car show deal. Anyways, I gotta start turning off lights and get out of here before I die of carbon monoxide poisoning or just become even dumber than I am, which means I'll probably start buying more cars that I don't need, that I don't have money for. But yeah, so tomorrow is going to be a freaking awesome day. And finally, this thing's gonna get out of my garage and we're gonna mark stuff off the list. So super excited.